The council chamber on Station Zenith had never been this loud. 12 species sat around the massive circular table, and all of them were shouting at once. Commander Jake stood in the observation gallery above, watching the chaos unfold. He had seen many things in his 38 years, but this was something new. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were falling apart over a single decision. Next to Jake stood Ambassador Lisa Morgan, her face calm despite the noise below. She had represented humanity for 5 years now, and she knew how these meetings worked. The elder species liked to argue. They believed that talking long enough would solve any problem, but this time was different. This time, they were running out of options. High Chancellor stood at the center of the chamber. His blue crystalline skin reflected the lights above, making him look like a living statue. He was trying to restore order, but his voice was lost in the shouting. The Dominion had given them 3 days to decide. 2 of those days were already gone. Jake leaned closer to the railing. He could see the strain on his face. The Chancellor was old, even by standards. He had led the Council for 40 years, always finding peaceful solutions. But they were not interested in peace. They wanted the Vega cluster, and they had already proven what would happen if the Council refused. 2 colony worlds had died as a demonstration. The planet-killer weapons had turned them into dust in seconds. Billions of lives gone in an instant. The message was clear: surrender or watch more worlds burn. Lisa touched Jake's arm. She pointed to the far side of the chamber where Counselor Myra sat alone. The representative was one of the few telepaths in the council. Her silver eyes were closed and her face showed deep sadness. She could feel the fear in the room, Jake realized. All that panic and desperation flowing through her mind like a flood. The shouting finally stopped when activated the chamber's amplification system. His voice boomed through the space, demanding silence. The council members settled into their seats, though many still looked angry. "We must vote," said. His voice was heavy with defeat. "They will not wait any longer. We must decide now whether to defend the Vega cluster or surrender it to their control." A tall reptilian counselor stood up. Jake recognized him as representative of the collective. "We cannot fight them," said. His voice hissed through sharp teeth. "The fleet is too strong. Their weapons can destroy planets. What chance do we have against such power?" Another counselor jumped up. This one was small and furry, with 4 arms that waved frantically. "If we surrender now, they will just demand more later. They are conquerors. They will not stop with one cluster." "Then what do you suggest?" shot back. "That we sacrifice more worlds, that we watch our colonies burn until they grow tired of killing us." The argument started again, voices rising in anger and fear. Jake shook his head. He understood their terror. They were brutal, but he also understood something the elder species seemed to have forgotten. Tyrants always wanted more. Giving them the Vega cluster would not satisfy them. It would only make them hungry for the next conquest. Lisa must have been thinking the same thing. She leaned toward Jake and whispered, "They are going to surrender. Look at his face. He has already made up his mind." Jake looked down at the Chancellor. Lisa was right. Shoulders were slumped, and his crystalline skin had dulled to a darker blue. The weight of the decision was crushing him, but he was going to choose survival over resistance. "We are the Galactic Council," said loudly, cutting through the noise again. "We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. We did not achieve this through war. We achieved it through wisdom and cooperation. They are stronger than us. We must accept this reality." Several counselors began to protest but raised his hand. "I call for a vote. All in favor of ceding control of the Vega cluster to the Dominion, signify now." 8 lights appeared above the table, 8 species choosing surrender. All opposed. 4 lights appeared, 4 species willing to fight. The chamber fell silent. It was done. The Galactic Council had surrendered without firing a single shot. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. He had served in the Earth military for 20 years. He had seen war up close. He knew it was terrible and bloody and cruel, but he also knew that some things were worth fighting for. The people living in the Vega cluster did not deserve to be abandoned. They did not deserve to become slaves to the Empire. He started toward the stairs leading down to the chamber floor. Lisa grabbed his arm. "Jake, don't. They won't listen." "I have to try," he said, pulling free. He reached the chamber floor just as was preparing to close the session. "High Chancellor," Jake called out, "I request permission to speak on behalf of humanity." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to him. Jake could feel their judgment. Humanity was the youngest member of the council. They had only been allowed to join 15 years ago. Many of the elder species still viewed humans as primitive newcomers who did not understand galactic politics. Looked at Jake with tired eyes. "Commander, this vote is final. The council has decided." "The council has decided to abandon innocent people," Jake said. His voice was steady but hard. "You are giving them exactly what they want. You are teaching them that threatening to kill civilians works. What happens when they want more? What happens when they demand your—" Stood up, his scales rattling in anger. "You humans know nothing of galactic affairs. You come from a violent world and think violence is the answer to everything. We have maintained peace for while your people were still killing each other over territory." Jake met his gaze without flinching. "You are right. We come from a violent world. We know what tyrants look like because we have fought them before, and we learned that surrendering to them never works. It only encourages them to take more." "Enough," said firmly. "Commander, I respect your opinion, but humanity does not have the authority to override this council's decision. The vote stands. This session is closed." Jake wanted to argue more, but Lisa appeared at his side. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent message to stop. He nodded stiffly and turned away. As they walked back to the gallery, he could hear the counselors whispering. Some sounded relieved. Others sounded ashamed. Counselor Myra was waiting for them near the exit. Her silver eyes met Lisa's, and for a moment neither spoke. Then Myra said quietly, "They have made a terrible mistake. The will not stop. This is only the beginning." "We know," Lisa said. "What will humanity do?" Myra asked. Lisa glanced at Jake before answering. "We will do what we think is right." Myra nodded slowly. "I thought you might say that. Be careful, Ambassador. The Council will not support you if you act alone." "We understand," Lisa replied. They left the chamber and made their way through the station's corridors. Neither of them spoke until they reached the human embassy. The building was small compared to the elder species embassies, but it was home. Jake headed straight for the communication room. "You are going to contact Earth," Lisa said. It was not a question. "We have to tell them what happened," Jake said. "The Council has failed. They are too afraid to act." Lisa was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. "Send the message, tell them everything." Jake sat down at the console and began typing. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. He detailed the vote, the Council's fear, and this ultimatum. He ended with a simple recommendation. Humanity needed to prepare for what came next. As he sent the encrypted message across the vast distance to Earth, he looked up at Lisa. She was standing by the window, staring out at the stars. The station orbited a beautiful nebula, and the colors painted her face in shades of blue and purple. "Do you think they will listen?" she asked softly. "Earth has dealt with tyrants before," Jake said. "They know what happens when good people do nothing." Lisa turned to face him. Her expression was serious. "If we act, we will be going against the Council. We could lose our membership. We could become outcasts." "I know," Jake said, "but if we do nothing, we become cowards, and I would rather be an outcast than a coward." Lisa smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, but it held determination. "Then I suppose we wait for Earth's reply." They did not have to wait long. 4 hours later, a priority message arrived from Earth. Jake opened it with Lisa looking over his shoulder. The message was brief and direct. Prepare contingency plans. Stand ready. Earth will not abandon the innocent. Jake looked at Lisa. She met his eyes and nodded once. They both knew what was coming. Humanity was about to step onto a path that would change everything. The elder species thought humans were too young, too primitive, too violent to understand galactic politics. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The emergency session of Earth's unified parliament had been going for 6 hours. President sat at the head of the massive table, listening to representatives from every continent argue about the same question. Should humanity intervene in the Vega cluster crisis? The chamber was deep underground, protected by layers of steel and concrete. Earth had learned long ago that important decisions needed to be made in safe places. The walls were covered with screens showing data streams, news feeds, and military reports. Every piece of information about the Dominion was displayed for the Parliament to see. "We should follow the Council's decision," said Representative Park from the Asian Coalition. "We are new members. We cannot simply ignore their ruling and act on our own." Defense Secretary Cooper leaned forward in his seat. He was a broad-shouldered man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. The Council's ruling was made out of fear, not wisdom. If we follow their lead, they will eventually reach Earth. It is only a matter of time. "You don't know that," Park shot back. "They have what they want. They might stop at the Vega cluster." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. History says otherwise. Empires built on conquest do not stop until someone stops them. We have seen this pattern on Earth 100 times. Why would it be different in space? President raised her hand, asking for silence. The room quieted immediately. She had led Earth through difficult times before. People trusted her judgment. "Doctor, what is your assessment of the elder species' capabilities?" Doctor stood up. She was a small woman with dark skin and intelligent eyes. As Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, she had spent years studying the species in the Galactic Council. "Madam President, the elder species are highly advanced in technology and science, but they have lived in peace for so long that they have lost their understanding of warfare. Their ships are designed for exploration and trade, not combat. Their crews are trained in diplomacy, not battle tactics." And the asked, "They are the opposite," continued. "They come from a harsh world where violence is common. Their entire culture is built around conquest and domination. They understand war in ways the elder species have forgotten." "What about humanity?" asked. "Where do we fit in this equation?" Smiled slightly. "We are unique, Madam President. Earth gave us both great intelligence and constant conflict. We developed advanced technology while also learning how to fight for survival. We understand warfare at a fundamental level because our entire history is filled with it. We know tactics, strategy, and the psychology of combat. This gives us an advantage that neither the elder species nor the can match." A representative from the European Union stood up. "Are you suggesting we are better warriors than the—" "No," said. "They are brutal and strong, but they rely on overwhelming force. They attack directly with massive fleets and planet-killer weapons. They do not understand subtle tactics or guerrilla warfare. That is where we have the advantage." Admiral rose from his seat at the far end of the table. At 56, he was the commander of Earth's entire defense fleet. His uniform was covered with medals earned during various conflicts in the solar system. "Madam President, I have reviewed the fleet composition. They favor large, heavily armed vessels. These ships are powerful, but they are slow and vulnerable to fast, coordinated attacks." "You believe we can defeat them?" asked. "In a direct battle? No," admitted. "They outnumber us and outgun us. But if we use hit-and-run tactics, if we target their supply lines and communication networks, if we make them fight on our terms instead of theirs, then yes, we can hurt them badly enough to make them reconsider their expansion." The Parliament erupted in discussion again. Some representatives were excited by the possibility. Others were terrified of the consequences. Let them talk for a few minutes before calling for order. Let me be clear about what we are discussing, she said. Her voice was firm and steady. If we intervene in the Vega cluster, we will be defying the Galactic Council. We will be acting without their approval or support. We could lose our membership. We could become isolated from every other species in the galaxy. We must understand the cost before we make this decision. Cooper spoke up. With respect, Madam President, I believe the cost of not acting is higher. If they are allowed to expand unchallenged, they will eventually threaten Earth. Better to stop them now while they are focused on the Vega cluster than wait for them to arrive at our doorstep. There is also a moral dimension, added quietly. The people living in the Vega cluster did nothing wrong. They are being enslaved because the Council was too afraid to defend them. If humanity has the power to help and chooses not to, what does that say about us? Looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leaders. She saw fear, determination, anger, and hope. These were the people who had guided humanity through wars, disasters, and the difficult journey to the stars. Now they faced perhaps the most important decision in human history. Admiral said, "If we decide to act, what would be your plan?" Activated a holographic display above the table. It showed the Vega cluster, a collection of 12 star systems rich in resources. Red markers indicated positions. They have occupied 3 major worlds. They are using orbital weapons platforms to control the populations below. Their fleet is stationed throughout the cluster, protecting mining operations and supply routes. He zoomed in on the central system. This is Vega Prime, the cluster's capital. If we can liberate this world, the others will follow. My plan is to deploy a small strike force of 12 ships. We avoid direct confrontation with the main fleet. Instead, we insert special forces teams onto the occupied worlds. These teams will disable the orbital weapons platforms from the inside. While the platforms are offline, continued, our fleet will strike at supply lines and communication relays. We isolate their forces, prevent them from coordinating, and pick them off in small engagements. We make them fight on 100 different fronts at once. They are strong, but they are not used to this kind of warfare. How many casualties do you anticipate? Asked. His expression darkened. On our side, we could lose half the strike force, maybe more. This is extremely dangerous. On the side, we will inflict significant damage, but more importantly, we will break their reputation as unbeatable conquerors. And the civilians in the Vega cluster? Someone asked. Our operations are designed to minimize civilian casualties, said. We are not there to destroy. We are there to liberate. That means we take risks to protect innocent lives. Stood up, she walked to the holographic display and studied it carefully. The entire Parliament watched her in silence. Finally, she turned back to face them. I want to tell you a story, she said. When I was a young officer, I served in the water wars. We were defending a settlement that had been taken over by a warlord's army. We were outnumbered 5 to 1. Every logical analysis said we should retreat and save ourselves. But the settlement had 2,000 civilians who would be killed if we left. She paused, her eyes distant with memory. We stayed, we fought. We used every trick and tactic we could think of, and we won. Not because we were stronger, but because we refused to abandon people who needed help. 23 of my unit died in that battle, but 2,000 people lived. I think about those 23 every day, and I think about those 2,000. Looked around the room. The Vega cluster has billions of people. They are not humans, they are not our species, but they are innocent and they need help. The Galactic Council has abandoned them. If we do the same, we are no better. I believe humanity should be better. She returned to her seat. I call for a vote. All in favor of authorizing military intervention in the Vega cluster, signify now. The vote was close. Some representatives voted yes immediately. Others hesitated, their fingers hovering over the buttons. Watched the tally climb slowly on the screen. When the final count appeared, it showed a narrow approval. 52% in favor, 48% against. The motion passes, announced. Admiral, you are authorized to proceed with Operation Vega Dawn. Defense Secretary Cooper will coordinate political aspects. Doctor will provide cultural and tactical intelligence. This mission is classified at the highest level. The Galactic Council cannot know we are intervening until it is too late for them to stop us. Saluted. Yes, Madam President, we will not fail. The meeting adjourned. As representatives filed out, remained seated, Cooper approached her. You made the right choice, he said. I hope so, replied. Because if we fail, Earth will pay the price for generations. On the other side of the planet, in orbit above Earth, 12 ships were being prepared for departure. The fleet was small by galactic standards. The elder species had vessels that could carry thousands. They had warships the size of cities, but Earth's ships were different. Captain Chris Martinez stood on the bridge of the EDS Resolute, watching the crew perform final checks. The Resolute was humanity's warship, built specifically for quick strikes and rapid deployment. It was not the biggest or the most powerful ship in the fleet, but it was fast and deadly. Martinez was 34 years old and had never commanded a mission like this. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. He had escorted trade convoys through dangerous space, but he had never gone to war against an empire. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a physical force. His second officer, Lieutenant Casey Brooks, approached him. All systems are green, Captain. We are ready to jump on your order. Martinez nodded. How is the crew? Nervous, Casey admitted, but ready. They know what is at stake. Martinez looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of people were living under occupation. They had lost hope because the Galactic Council had abandoned them. They did not know that help was coming. They did not know that 12 human ships were about to jump into faster-than-light travel. Lieutenant, open a channel to the fleet, Martinez ordered. Channel open, sir. Martinez took a breath. This is Captain Martinez to all ships. In a few minutes we will begin our journey to the Vega cluster. Our mission is to liberate the occupied worlds and drive back the Dominion. This will be dangerous. Some of us may not come home, but we are not fighting for glory or conquest. We are fighting because it is right. We are fighting because someone has to stand against tyranny. We are fighting because humanity believes that freedom is worth defending. He paused, letting his words sink in. The elder species think we are too young to understand galactic politics. They think we are too weak to challenge them. Let's show them both what humans can do. All ships, prepare for jump. Let's bring some hope to the Vega cluster. The communication ended. Martinez turned to his helmsman. Execute jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. Space twisted. Reality bent. The 12 ships of Earth's strike force vanished from orbit, beginning their journey across the galaxy. They left behind a planet holding its breath, hoping their children would return home victorious. The Vega cluster burned under occupation. From his command ship in orbit above Vega Prime, looked down at the conquered world with satisfaction. The planet's surface glowed with the lights of cities that now belonged to the Dominion. Mining operations had begun immediately. Resources flowed upward to his fleet in a steady stream. Was a massive creature, even for his species. His gray-scaled skin was covered in scars from a lifetime of battles. His 4 arms ended in claws that had torn through countless enemies. He had conquered 12 worlds before this one, and Vega Prime had fallen the easiest. The local population had surrendered without a fight once they saw the orbital weapons platforms power up. Status report, growled to his second officer. The smaller bowed low. All mining operations are ahead of schedule. The local population is cooperating fully. We have encountered no resistance. Of course not, said. The elder species are cowards. They talk about peace and cooperation, but they have no courage. They would rather live as slaves than die as warriors. He turned away from the viewport, his mood darkening. The Galactic Council surrendered this cluster without firing a single shot. What kind of civilization does that? They deserve to be conquered. On the surface of Vega Prime, Governor sat in what had once been his office. There was a small, furry creature with large eyes that showed constant fear. Before the came, he had governed a peaceful world of artists and scientists. Now he governed a prison. Soldiers patrolled the streets outside. The orbital weapons platforms hung in the sky like terrible suns, ready to burn the city if anyone resisted. Had watched the council's vote broadcast across the galaxy. He had seen them abandon his people. The betrayal hurt worse than the occupation. An officer entered without knocking. "You will increase mining output by 20%, the officer said. It was not a request. "Our people are already working maximum hours," said Weekly. "If we push them harder, some will die." The officer laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound. "Then they die. We need more resources. The Dominion is expanding and Vega Prime must contribute." After the officer left, put his head in his hands. There was no hope. The council had abandoned them. No one was coming to help. This was their future now. He was wrong. 300 kilometers above the planet, a human shuttle drifted silently through space. It had been painted to match the color of space itself, making it nearly invisible. Inside, Lieutenant Tyler Grant checked his equipment one final time. He was 32 years old, built lean and hard from years of Special Forces training. Next to him sat Engineer Tors. At 29, she was one of Earth's best computer specialists. Her fingers moved across a tablet, reviewing the schematics of the orbital weapons platforms. "The security is good," she said quietly, "but not perfect. They rely too much on brute force programming. No subtlety. I can break it." "How long will you need?" Tyler asked. "Once I am inside their network, maybe 18 hours. They use layered security, but each layer is simple. They don't expect anyone to be smart enough to hack them." Tyler smiled grimly. Their mistake. The shuttle carried 8 more soldiers, each one a specialist in covert operations. They had trained for months for this mission. Now they were about to infiltrate an occupied world and disable weapons powerful enough to destroy cities. The pilot, a woman named Kate Palmer, spoke over the internal comm. "We are approaching the descent window. Patrol patterns show a gap in coverage in 3 minutes." "Copy that," Tyler said. He turned to his team. "This is it. Remember the plan. We blend in with the refugee populations, make our way to the control nexus and let work her magic. No heroics. No unnecessary risks. We are not here to fight. We are here to shut down those platforms." The team nodded. They had all volunteered for this mission. They knew the odds. If they were caught, they would torture them for information before killing them. But they also knew that billions of lives depended on their success. The shuttle began its descent, engines barely firing to avoid detection. It slipped through the gap in the patrol pattern and entered the atmosphere. Kate guided it with expert precision, using the planet's natural magnetic fields to mask their signature. They landed in a ruined district on the outskirts of the capital city. Bombardment had destroyed most of the buildings here, creating a wasteland of rubble and debris. It was the perfect place to hide a shuttle. The team moved quickly, covering the vessel with camouflage netting before heading into the city. The streets were full of refugees. They moved in long lines, herded by soldiers toward the mining facilities. Tyler and his team blended into the crowd. They had brought clothing that matched the local style, and at a distance, humans could pass for if no one looked too closely. The control nexus for the orbital weapons platforms was deep inside the city, in a building that had once been a government center. Now it was a military installation, guarded by dozens of soldiers and automated defense systems. Getting inside would be almost impossible. Almost. Had been studying supply routes for weeks. She knew that every day at exactly 1400 hours, a convoy of supply trucks entered the facility through the main gate. The guards checked the cargo, but they did not check carefully. They were arrogant. They did not believe anyone would dare to attack them. Tyler's team acquired a supply truck through methods they did not discuss. At 1400 hours, they drove toward the facility gate. Tyler was driving, wearing a stolen uniform that barely fit his human frame. His heart pounded as they approached the checkpoint. A guard stepped forward, weapon ready. Tyler forced himself to remain calm. The guard said something in the language. Tyler had learned a few phrases, but his accent was terrible. He grunted what he hoped was the right response. The guard looked suspicious. He walked around the truck, examining it carefully. Tyler's hand moved slowly toward his concealed weapon. If this went wrong, they would have to fight their way out. That would ruin everything. Then the guard waved them through. Tyler exhaled slowly and drove into the facility. They had made it past the first barrier. Inside the compound, they unloaded the truck in a storage area. Immediately went to work, finding a network access port and connecting her specialized equipment. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she began probing the systems. "I am in," she whispered after 20 minutes. "Their firewalls are strong but predictable. Give me time." Time was something they had very little of. Guards patrolled the area regularly. Tyler positioned his team to watch for danger while worked. The minutes crawled by like hours. Every footstep in the corridor made his muscles tense. Above them in space, the human fleet was moving into position. Captain Martinez stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the tactical display. The fleet was scattered across the cluster, protecting different mining operations. That was good. It meant they could not concentrate their forces. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer said, waiting on the ground team's signal. Martinez nodded. Everything depended on Tyler and his team. If they could not disable the orbital platforms, the liberation would fail before it began. Civilians would die. The mission would become a disaster. 16 hours passed. Worked without stopping, her eyes red from exhaustion. She had bypassed 7 security layers and was working on the 8th. Tyler brought her water and food, but she barely noticed. She was completely focused on the code scrolling across her screen. "Almost there," she muttered. "Just one more barrier. They put a quantum lock on the final layer. Smart, but not smart enough." Tyler checked his watch. They had been inside the facility for too long. Sooner or later, someone would notice the supply truck. Someone would ask questions. They needed to finish this now. "Done," said suddenly. She looked up at Tyler with a tired smile. "I have full access to the platform control system. I can shut them all down at once." "Do it," Tyler ordered. Typed a final command. Throughout the Vega cluster, every orbital weapons platform went dark simultaneously. Power systems shut down. Targeting computers went offline. The terrible weapons that had held entire populations hostage became nothing more than useless metal. In his command ship was reviewing mining reports when alarms began screaming. "What is happening?" he roared. His officers scrambled to answer. "The platforms, they are all offline. We have lost control." "Impossible," snarled. "Find the problem and fix it." "We are trying, sir, but the systems are not responding. It is as if someone has locked us out of our own network." Before could respond, more alarms sounded. This time they were combat warnings. His tactical display lit up with dozens of contacts. Unknown ships were appearing throughout the cluster, moving at incredible speeds. They were attacking supply convoys, communication relays, and isolated patrol ships. "Who are they?" demanded. "Unknown. The ship signatures do not match any species in our database." Watched as one of his supply convoys was destroyed in seconds. The attacking ships moved with precision and coordination. They did not engage in direct combat. Instead, they struck fast and disappeared before his forces could respond. It was cowardly, he thought. Dishonorable. It was also effective. On Vega Prime, Tyler's team fought their way out of the facility. The explosion they had rigged on the main power generator provided the perfect distraction. As soldiers rushed to contain the fire, Tyler led his people through the chaos toward their shuttle. They ran through streets full of confused civilians. They had seen the orbital platforms go dark. Some were starting to realize what it meant. Hope was a dangerous thing, but it was spreading through the city like wildfire. The team reached their shuttle and took off, barely escaping a patrol. As they climbed toward space, Tyler activated his comm. "This is Ground Team Alpha. Platforms are down. I repeat, platforms are down. We are clear." In space, Captain Martinez heard the message and allowed himself a small smile. "All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Let's show the what humans can do." The human fleet swept through the cluster like a storm. They targeted everything that kept the forces connected and supplied. Communication satellites exploded. Supply depots burned. Patrol ships were ambushed and destroyed before they could call for help. Watched his empire in the Vega cluster fall apart. His ships were too slow to catch the attackers. His forces were too scattered to coordinate a defense. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had not experienced since childhood: fear. Then a message appeared on every communication channel. It was simple and direct, translated into their language. "The Vega cluster is not yours. Leave now or learn why you should fear the creatures from Earth." The message was signed with an image of a blue and green planet orbited by a silver moon. Stared at the image. Earth. He had heard of this world, a primitive planet that had barely joined the Galactic Council. These upstart newcomers dared to challenge the Dominion. He would crush them. He would make them regret ever leaving their worthless planet. "Recall all forces," ordered. "We are going to Earth. I will destroy there and use it as a lesson to the entire galaxy. No one challenges the Dominion." His officers scrambled to obey. Within hours, the fleet was gathering. 30 warships, each one capable of destroying planets. They would jump to Earth and end this insult once and for all. Never considered that this might be exactly what the humans wanted him to do. The emergency summons reached Ambassador Lisa Morgan at 3 in the morning, station time. She dressed quickly and made her way to the Galactic Council chamber. Commander Jake was already waiting outside, his face grim. "They know," Jake said simply. "How bad is it?" Lisa asked. "Very bad. High Chancellor is demanding we appear before the full council immediately. He is calling it an unauthorized military action that endangered the entire galaxy." Lisa straightened her uniform. "Then let's go face them." The council chamber was packed. All 12 species had representatives present, and the gallery above was full of observers from across the galaxy. News of the Vega cluster liberation had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see what the council would do to the humans who had their surrender. High Chancellor stood at the center, his crystalline skin pulsing with barely controlled anger. When Lisa and Jake entered, the chamber fell silent. Every eye was on them. "Ambassador Morgan," said, his voice cold and formal. "Commander, you stand accused of violating Galactic Council authority. Humanity launched a military operation without consultation or approval. Your actions have provoked the Dominion and placed every member species at risk. What do you have to say for yourselves?" Lisa walked calmly to the center of the chamber. She did not look ashamed. She did not apologize. Instead, she met gaze directly. "High Chancellor, humanity acted to defend innocent lives. The Council surrendered the Vega cluster to the without firing a shot. Billions of people were abandoned to slavery and exploitation. We could not stand by and watch that happen." "You had no right," Representative hissed from his seat. "The Council voted. The decision was made legally and properly." "The decision was made out of fear," Lisa replied. "Not wisdom. The threatened to destroy worlds and you gave them what they wanted. That does not make the decision right. It makes it cowardly." The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Half the council was furious at Lisa's words. The other half looked uncomfortable, as if she had spoken a truth they did not want to hear. Slammed his hand on the table, demanding silence. You forget yourself, Ambassador. Humanity is the member of this council. You do not have the authority to lecture species who maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years. And in those 10,000 years, Jake spoke up for the first time, did you ever face a threat like the? Did any empire ever demand territory backed by planet-killer weapons? Or did you simply have the luxury of never being tested? How dare you? Another counselor shouted. We have dealt with many conflicts through diplomacy and negotiation. You have dealt with reasonable people, Jake corrected. They are not reasonable, they are conquerors. Every empire built on conquest operates the same way. They push until someone pushes back. If no one resists, they keep pushing forever. Counselor Myra rose from her seat. The telepathic had been silent until now, but her silver eyes were focused intently. The humans raise a valid point. The would not have stopped with the Vega cluster. My people felt their intentions through telepathic scanning. They were planning to demand more territory within a year. Then you should have told us this during the vote, said sharply. I did, Myra replied quietly. You chose not to believe me. The statement hung in the air like an accusation. Crystalline skin darkened with embarrassment. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Lisa pressed the advantage. High Chancellor, let me ask you a question. What would they have done after taking the Vega cluster? Would they have stopped their expansion? Would they have been satisfied with what you gave them? Or would they have made new demands backed by the same threats? Did not answer immediately. The silence stretched out, heavy with implications. You cannot answer, Lisa continued, because you know the truth. They would have demanded more, and you would have surrendered again, and again, until there was nothing left to surrender except your. So you took it upon yourselves to start a war, said, without consulting us, without considering the consequences. We did not start this war, Jake said firmly. They started it when they destroyed 2 colony worlds as a demonstration. We simply finished what they began. And now they are coming here, said. His voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Our intelligence reports that the fleet is heading toward Earth. 30 warships. Enough firepower to turn your planet into ash. What will you do when they arrive, Commander? Will your tactics save you then? Jake smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Yes. The simple confidence in that word seemed to shake. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat 30 warships. We already defeated their occupation force in the Vega cluster, Lisa said. Why would Earth be any different? Because the Vega cluster was a skirmish, shouted. This will be the full might of the Dominion. They will not hold back. They will not show mercy. They will destroy everything you love. Then we will fight them, Lisa said simply, and we will win. The council dissolved into chaos again. Some species were shouting support. Others were demanding humanity be expelled from the council immediately, tried to restore order but failed. Finally, he called for a vote on humanity's expulsion. The vote was interrupted by alarms. Emergency klaxons blared throughout the station. A tactical officer rushed into the chamber. High Chancellor, the fleet has arrived at the edge of human-controlled space. They are broadcasting a message. Activated the chamber's main display. Face appeared massive and his 4 arms crossed over his chest. Attention, inferior species. The humans have committed an act of war against the Dominion. We demand they surrender immediately and submit to our justice. If they refuse, we will destroy their. You have 1 hour to comply. The transmission ended. The chamber fell silent again. Every eye turned to Lisa and Jake. So, Lisa said calmly, are we still being expelled, or would you like to see how this plays out? Sank into his seat, looking suddenly old and tired. The vote is postponed. We will reconvene after the situation resolves itself. Lisa and Jake left the chamber. As they walked through the corridors, Jake activated his comm unit. Status report. Admiral's voice came through clearly. The fleet is exactly where we expected. They are positioning for an attack run on Earth. Everything is proceeding according to plan. Acknowledged, Jake said. He looked at Lisa. This is it, the moment that determines everything. I know, Lisa replied. Either we win and change the galaxy's understanding of what is possible, or we lose and Earth becomes a cautionary tale. No pressure, Jake said with dark humor. In space near Earth, Admiral watched the tactical display from his command ship. The fleet was massive, their warships arranged in a standard assault formation. They were advancing slowly, confident in their overwhelming power. They expected humanity to surrender or die. They were about to learn otherwise. Deploy Protocol Swarm, ordered. From hidden positions throughout the solar system, thousands of small drones launched simultaneously. Each drone was barely larger than a fighter craft, too small for the sensors to track effectively. They had been built specifically for this mission, using every trick humanity had learned from centuries of warfare. The drones moved in coordinated patterns, forming a cloud that surrounded the fleet. To the sensors, they looked like insignificant debris or sensor ghosts. By the time realized what was happening, it was too late. The drones attached themselves to the hulls of the warships. They targeted specific points, engine ports, weapons arrays, sensor clusters, communication antennas. Then they detonated. The explosions were small individually, but there were thousands of them. Across the fleet, ships began experiencing cascading failures. Engines sputtered and died. Weapons systems went offline. Communication networks collapsed. The mighty armada that had destroyed planets was being taken apart by weapons so small they had been dismissed as irrelevant. Impossible, roared on his command ship. How are they doing this? Where are their warships? His tactical officer was frantically trying to restore systems. The drones are everywhere. They are too small and too numerous to target effectively. We cannot stop them. Then send fighters, send troops, do something. But it was too late. Half the fleet was already disabled. The ships drifted helplessly, their crews scrambling to repair critical systems. The remaining ships tried to retreat but found themselves harassed by human fighters that appeared from nowhere, struck with precision, and vanished before they could be targeted. Captain Martinez brought the Resolute directly toward command ship. The massive vessel was 10 times the size of the human warship, but size meant nothing when your engines were offline and your weapons would not fire. This is Captain Martinez of the Earth Defense Ship Resolute, he broadcast on all channels. You came here to destroy You believed we were weak because we are young. You believed we would surrender because that is what the elder species did. You were wrong. On the command ship, stared at the small human vessel approaching him. How had this happened? His fleet was unstoppable. His weapons could destroy planets. Yet here he was, disabled and defenseless, facing an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. You have 2 choices, Martinez continued. Surrender now and be allowed to leave this system alive, or refuse and we will destroy every ship in your fleet. Choose quickly. My patience is limited. Felt rage burning through him. He was of the Dominion. He had conquered 12 worlds. He did not surrender to anyone, especially not to these upstart humans. He reached for his personal weapon, ready to give the order to fight to the last ship. Then he looked at his tactical display. 30 warships had entered this system. 23 were now disabled. The remaining 7 were barely functional. His entire invasion force had been defeated by an enemy using tactics he could not understand or counter. If he refused to surrender, his fleet would be destroyed. The Dominion would lose 1/3 of its military strength. And for what? Pride. Had spent his entire life conquering others. For the first time, he understood what it felt like to be on the other side of that equation. We surrender, he said quietly. The words seemed to physically hurt him. His officers stared in shock. The mighty, who had never retreated from any battle, was surrendering to primitive humans. Martinez allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Your ships will be escorted out of this system. If you ever return to human space, we will not be as merciful. Tell your Dominion what happened here today. Tell them that Earth is not afraid of threats. Tell them that humanity defends what is ours. The fleet limped away, their pride shattered along with their ships. They had come to destroy Earth. Instead, they had been humiliated by tactics they never imagined possible. On Station Zenith, the Galactic Council watched the battle's conclusion on live feeds. The chamber was completely silent. Every counselor stared at the screens in disbelief. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the Dominion's fleet without losing a single ship. High Chancellor looked at Lisa Morgan, who had remained in the gallery to watch. She met his gaze calmly, without triumph or arrogance, just quiet certainty. Realized in that moment that the galaxy had changed. The humans had not just defeated they had proven that the elder species' way of thinking was outdated. Peace through surrender was not peace at all. It was merely delaying conflict until the cost became unbearable. Maybe thought, the youngest species in the Council had the most important lesson to teach. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. 3 days had passed since the fleet's defeat, and the Council was meeting to decide humanity's fate. But the mood had changed completely from their last session. No one was shouting. No one was demanding humanity's expulsion. Instead, the counselors sat in uncomfortable silence, forced to confront truths they had been avoiding for centuries. High Chancellor stood at the center of the chamber. His crystalline skin was a dull gray, reflecting his inner turmoil. He looked older than he had just a week ago, as if the events had aged him decades. This council must make a decision, he said quietly. Humanity, our authority. They launched military operations without approval. By every law and tradition, they should be censured and possibly expelled. He paused, looking around at the other counselors. But they also saved the Vega cluster from occupation. They defeated an enemy we were too afraid to face. They protected innocent lives when we chose to abandon them. So I ask you, my fellow counselors, what should we do? The silence stretched out. Finally, Counselor Myra rose from her seat. The telepathic looked directly at. I propose we do something this council has never done before. I propose we admit we were wrong. The chamber stirred. Several counselors looked shocked at the suggestion. For 10,000 years, Myra continued, we have maintained peace through diplomacy and negotiation. This worked because we faced reasonable opponents who valued stability, but they are not reasonable. They are conquerors who only understand strength. We should have recognized this. We should have prepared to defend ourselves. Instead, we chose surrender because it was easier than facing our own fears. She turned to address the entire council. The humans showed us what we have become. We are so committed to peace that we have forgotten how to defend it. We have advanced technology, but we use it only for exploration and commerce. We have vast knowledge, but we never considered that knowledge could be used to protect the innocent. The humans, who are younger and less advanced than us, understood something we forgot, that freedom must be defended, not just discussed. Representative, the who had argued most strongly against human intervention, slowly stood. His scales were a darker color than usual, a sign of shame in his species. Counselor Myra speaks truth. I argued that humans were too violent, too primitive to understand galactic affairs. I was wrong. They understood better than any of us what was at stake. While we debated and surrendered, they acted. They risked their lives to save people who were not even their own species. He looked toward where Ambassador Lisa Morgan sat in the gallery. I formally apologized to humanity for my words. You showed courage when we showed only cowardice. One by one, other counselors began to stand. Each one acknowledged their mistake in different ways. Some were more reluctant than others, but the message was clear. The council had failed, and humanity had succeeded where they had not. watched this unfold with mixed emotions. Pride warred with shame in his heart. He had led this council for 40 years. He had believed that peace was always the answer. Now he understood that sometimes peace must be bought with strength. "I call for a vote," said. "All in favor of formally requesting humanity's assistance in reforming our defense policies, signify now." Every light appeared. It was unanimous. "Motion passes," said. Then, slowly, he did something unprecedented. He stepped down from his position at the center of the chamber and walked to where Lisa Morgan sat. The entire council watched in stunned silence as their High Chancellor bowed to the human ambassador. "Ambassador Morgan," said, his voice carrying throughout the chamber, "I have led this council for 40 years. I believed I understood what was necessary to maintain peace. Events have proven me wrong. I am not fit to lead a galaxy that requires the kind of courage humanity has shown. Therefore, I resign as High Chancellor." The chamber erupted in shocked voices, raised his hand for silence. "However, before I step down, I propose that Ambassador Lisa Morgan be appointed as the new High Chancellor. She has demonstrated the wisdom and courage this position requires." Lisa stood up quickly. "High Chancellor, I cannot accept this. I am honored, but humanity is too new to the Council. The elder species would never accept a human as their leader." "Let them vote," said simply. The vote was called. To Lisa's amazement, it passed with only 3 abstentions. The elder species, who had looked down on humanity just weeks ago, now wanted a human to lead them. Lisa walked to the center of the chamber in a daze. She had come here expecting to defend humanity's actions. Instead, she was being made the leader of the entire Galactic Council. The responsibility was overwhelming. "I accept," she said finally, "but with conditions. Humanity will not dominate this council. We will serve it. We will share what we know about defense and tactics, but we will also learn from your knowledge and experience. Together, we can build something stronger than what any of us could create alone." Over the following months, the galaxy began to change. Admiral established training programs for the elder species defense forces. It was difficult at first. The elder species had never thought in military terms. They struggled with concepts like tactical positioning, supply line protection, and asymmetric warfare. But they learned. Young members of different species volunteered to study under human instructors. They learned not just how to fight, but why fighting was sometimes necessary. They learned that strength was not about aggression, but about protecting those who could not protect themselves. Doctor launched cultural exchange programs. Human diplomats lived among alien populations, and alien diplomats came to Earth. The goal was not to make everyone think like humans, but to share different perspectives. Humans brought knowledge of conflict resolution and defensive strategy. The elder species brought advanced technology and thousands of years of accumulated wisdom. The combination was powerful. In the Vega cluster, the liberated worlds rebuilt under a joint protectorate. Governor, who had once cowered under occupation, found new strength. He established schools where young learned both their traditional arts and human tactical thinking. The goal was not to create warriors, but to ensure his people would never be helpless again. A monument was built in the capital city of Vega Prime. It showed a human and a standing together, holding a broken chain. The inscription was simple: "The day we learned that freedom is not given but defended." People came from across the galaxy to see it. The monument became a symbol of what the galaxy could become when different species worked together. The Dominion did not disappear, but it changed. The humiliating defeat at Earth had caused internal problems, was removed from command and exiled in disgrace. Younger leaders, tired of endless conquest, began negotiations with the Galactic Council. Captain Chris Martinez was sent as Earth's diplomatic representative to these talks. It was tense. They were proud, and admitting defeat went against everything in their culture. But Martinez understood something important. They were not evil. They were products of their harsh world and violent culture. They could change if given a reason to. "We do not want to destroy you," Martinez told the negotiators. "We want to show you there is another way. Your strength and discipline could be used to protect instead of conquer. The galaxy has threats beyond thee and humanity. We could face them together." Some rejected this completely. They retreated to their borders, nursing their wounded pride and plotting revenge. But others, surprisingly, listened. They began sending observers to human military academies. They studied Earth's history, trying to understand how a species could be both violent and principled. It would take generations for them to truly change, but the process had begun. On Earth, children learned about the Vega cluster liberation in their schools. It was taught not as a military victory, but as a moral lesson. The lesson was not that violence was good, but that standing for what was right sometimes required difficult choices. Teachers emphasized that humanity had not sought glory or conquest. They had acted because no one else would. The events became known simply as the day in human culture. The day humans changed everything. The day a young species showed the elder races that age did not always mean wisdom. 1 year after the defeat, Jake and Lisa Morgan met privately in her new office on Station Zenith. The station had been renamed Unity Station, reflecting its new purpose as a place where different species worked together. Jake looked around at the changes. Where once there had been only elder species art and symbols, now there were contributions from every member civilization. Humans had added paintings of Earth. The had contributed their delicate sculptures. Even the had sent a traditional battle standard, now repurposed as a symbol of their commitment to change. "Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing?" Jake asked. Lisa looked at him thoughtfully. "Every day. We started a conflict that could have ended badly. We risked Earth's safety on the belief that they could be defeated." "But they were defeated," Jake said, "and the galaxy is safer now." "For now," Lisa agreed. "But there will be other threats, other challenges. The difference is that now the galaxy is prepared to face them. We are not conquerors, Jake. We are teachers. We reminded everyone what civilization really means." Jake smiled. "Not bad for primitives from a backwater world." "Not bad at all," Lisa agreed. An alert sounded on Lisa's desk. She checked it and frowned. "There are reports of pirate activity in the Outer Rim. They are raiding trade routes." "What does the council want to do?" Jake asked. "They have called an emergency session tomorrow. But this time, there is no paralysis, no arguments about whether to act. A young admiral has already proposed a coordinated response using human tactical doctrine. The motion has broad support." Jake felt pride swell in his chest. This was what they had fought for, not to make the galaxy more violent, but to make it capable of defending itself, to give peaceful civilizations the tools they needed to remain free. "The galaxy is learning," he said. Slowly, Lisa said, "but yes, they are learning." The next day, the Galactic Council convened to address the pirate threat. The discussion was efficient and focused. The elder species no longer debated endlessly about avoiding conflict. They discussed strategies, coordinated resources, and made quick decisions. Within hours, a joint task force was assembled and deployed. The pirates were eliminated within a week. It was not a major victory, but it was significant. The galaxy had responded to a threat with confidence and strength. They had not surrendered. They had not hesitated. They had acted. News of the successful operation spread across 1,000 worlds. People felt safer knowing their leaders would protect them. Trade routes reopened. Colonies that had been afraid to expand began growing again. The psychological impact was as important as the military victory. Earth sent a message to all Galactic Council members. President recorded it personally. Her words were broadcast to billions across the galaxy. "We are stronger together," she said. "We are safer together, and we will defend each other, no matter the cost." This is the promise of humanity. This is the promise of all free people. The day we changed everything was the day we remembered what civilization truly means. The message resonated across species and cultures. It was translated into hundreds of languages. It was taught to children in schools from Earth to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. It became more than words. It became a philosophy. On Vega Prime, Governor stood before the monument showing humans and united. A group of young had just graduated from the new academy where they learned both traditional arts and practical defense. Had been terrified when they came. He had felt helpless when the council abandoned them. He had despaired when liberation seemed impossible. Now he felt hope. Remember this day, told the graduates. Not because humans saved us, though they did. Remember it because it taught us we can save ourselves. The humans did not conquer through superior weapons. They won through courage, intelligence, and the willingness to stand for what is right. These are not human traits. They are universal traits. Any species can choose them. The young nodded, their large eyes bright with determination. They would not be victims. They would not be helpless. They would be protectors of their own world and, if needed, defenders of others. This was the real victory. Not the military triumph over but the cultural transformation across the galaxy. The elder species had been given a gift they did not know they needed. The reminder that peace was not the absence of conflict, but the courage to face it. On Unity Station, in her office overlooking the stars, Lisa Morgan received reports from across the galaxy. New defense academies were opening. Joint military exercises were being conducted. Different species were sharing knowledge and tactics. The galaxy was becoming stronger every day. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a small embassy on a distant station to the leadership of the entire Galactic Council. From being dismissed as a primitive to being trusted with the galaxy's future. But she knew the truth. Humanity had not elevated themselves through conquest or domination. They had earned respect through sacrifice and principle. They had shown by example what was possible when you refused to surrender to fear. Jake appeared in her doorway. "Another crisis?" he asked, seeing her reviewing reports. "Not a crisis," Lisa said with a slight smile. "An opportunity. 3 more species want to join the Defense Cooperation Program, and the moderates have agreed to send a delegation to Earth to study our approach to military ethics." Jake whistled softly. "The galaxy really has changed." "Yes," Lisa said, "and it will keep changing. There will be setbacks. There will be species that resist. There will be new threats we cannot predict, but the foundation is strong now. The galaxy understands that strength and morality are not opposites, they are complements." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the endless stars. Somewhere out there were billions of beings living their lives. They were safer now because humanity had refused to be silent when injustice occurred. They were freer because someone had stood up to tyranny. "Do you think the elder species truly understand what we taught them?" Jake asked. Lisa considered the question. "Some do, some still struggle with it, but understanding is a process, not a destination. The important thing is they are trying, they are learning, and slowly they are becoming the civilization they always claimed to be." The galaxy would never be the same. The day humans changed, everything had set in motion transformations that would continue for generations. Wars would still happen. Conflicts would still arise. But now the galaxy faced them with both wisdom and courage. And in the end, that made all the difference. Years later, historians would write about this period as the Great Awakening. They would analyze the tactics humans used, the diplomatic strategies they employed, the cultural impact they created. They would debate whether humanity's intervention was legally justified and whether the ends justified the means. But the people who lived through it knew the simple truth. A young species from a violent world had reminded the galaxy of something essential, that civilization without the courage to defend it was just a beautiful lie waiting to be shattered. Humanity had not made the galaxy more violent. They had made it more honest. And in that honesty, every species found the strength to be better than they had been. The day the humans changed everything was not about weapons or tactics or military victories. It was about the moment an entire galaxy looked at itself and decided it could be more than it was. That decision echoed through the stars, changing everything it touched, proving that sometimes the youngest voice in the room carries the most important message. Freedom is not given, it is defended, and anyone, regardless of age or origin, can choose to be its defender. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. This was the legacy of the day. And the galaxy would never forget it.